When you ask Pokemon fans what the worst type of all time is, there's usually only two answers: Bug and Ice. In fact, these types are so bad that out of 15 total World Championships, Pokemon of these two types have as many victories combined as I do. Bug types at least make some thematic sense for why they're so bad. I mean, they're bugs after all. Ice types, much less so. But after fans clamored for years for them to receive buffs, Game Freak actually listened, releasing multiple top-tier Ice types in Scarlet and Violet, as well as reworking their signature weather effect, Hail, into something actually worth using. But I'm here to bring up a third type, one that is so forgotten not only by Game Freak and how bad and unsuccessful this type has been in competitive Pokemon, but even forgotten by fans when simply discussing what the worst type actually is. So let's talk about the Rock type. Most Pokemon types have won the World Championship a double-digit number of times. As an example, just average types like Grass, Fighting, and Ground have won Worlds 10 times each. I already told you how few victories Bug and Ice types have, but the Rock type is hardly any better, having won Worlds only 3 times. And it's not for a lack of high-statted Pokemon either. Throughout the 9 total generations of Pokemon, there have been 5 Rock-type legendaries, 1 pseudo-legendary, and even 2 Paradox Pokemon. So how do we get here? Where Rock types probably deserve a buff the same way Ice types did for the longest time, and Bug types still do. And how can Game Freak fix what's fundamentally broken about the Rock type? Well, let's first take a look at when Rock types were actually among the game's strongest Pokemon back in Generation 1. Rhydon and Golem were 2 very strong and commonly used Pokemon back in Red and Blue. They had good bulk, high attack stats, and strong moves. Their part Rock typing helped them defensively and also gave them favorable matchups offensively into some of the game's strongest Pokemon. They were well balanced though, as they also had weaknesses to pretty common types. But Rock types still excelled as these slow, bulky, yet somehow still powerful behemoths with sky-high defense. That is, until, just like the real world, we progress from a caveman society built with rocks to an industrialized one made with steel. Steel types had all of what made Rock types so good originally, but they were just better. And nothing demonstrates this more than the type chart. Rock types were given 4 resistances, which is pretty good, but they had 5 weaknesses to balance it out. Steel types, on the other hand, have a completely unfair 10 resistances and 1 immunity. This was even worse in older generations where Steel types actually resisted Ghost and Dark type attacks too. And so the smart people over at Game Freak decided that in order to balance a Steel type, they needed to give it... Hold on, I can't be seeing this right. 3 weaknesses? Well, that's totally balanced. But this is made even worse by the overlap in these 2 types. Of Rock type's 4 resistances, Steel types also resist normal and flying and are outright immune to poison. And of Steel type's 3 weaknesses, Rock types are also weak to fighting and ground. So from a purely type matchup perspective, Steel types almost completely outclass Rock types as a defensive backbone for your team. And that leads me to the problem that has plagued Rock types for generations. See, in competitive Pokemon, if something's completely outclassed with no niche to separate it from Pokemon with superior stats, moves, or abilities, no player trying to win will ever use it, right? I mean, you don't see anyone using Cantonian Arcanine once Incineroar enters the ring. This, of course, applies to Pokemon themselves, but it also applies to types. Rock types were consistently designed in the exact same way for decades. Slow, bulky, and defensive. But as we've already established, Steel types are outright better in that role. If Rock types had some kind of unique pool of support moves to differentiate themselves a bit, that would be one thing. But Steel types are better at supporting too. So in order to understand the strong points of Rock types as well as come up with ideas for how Game Freak can fix them, let's take a quick look at the most successful Rock types throughout Pokemon's history and the common theme that made most of them good. Starting with what is probably the game's strongest Rock type, Tyranitar, who was a staple of competitive teams for many years. Its best performance was way back in 2012, where it was crowned World Champion. Its incredible Sandstream ability helped disrupt opposing weather-reliant strategies, and its massive special defense inside the sandstorm it created let it take the strongest special attacks in the game. Fairy types didn't exist yet, nor did powerful intimidators like Incineroar and Landorus Therian form, so it was capable of dishing out a ton of damage as well. Tyranitar is still solid even to this day, having won a regional championship as recently as 2023, and looks primed to win another in the tail end of 2024. Another high-statted Rock type who has won the World Championship is the legendary Pokemon Terrakion back in 2011. This was the first ever regional dex format, so its relatively high speed and attack stats let it outspeed almost every non-legendary Pokemon it was competing against and do massive damage in the process. And the legendaries it was competing against were all flying types, so its rock typing was a central part of what made it so good that year. The second ever regional dex format in 2014 saw Aerodactyl excel as a fast and reliable tailwind setter, which could control the speed of the battle in your favor. It also learned Wide Guard to protect its allies from spread attacks, and could even keep the incredibly common Mega Charizard Wise and Talonflames in control by threatening a one-hit KO with a faster Rock Slide. Aerodactyl won its only regional championship that year, and even finished 5th at the World Championships. Moving into the Sun and Moon era, we got a trio of strong rock types. Gigalith was a powerful Trick Room Center damage dealer in the regional dex format of 2017. Rocky MZ turned Stone Edge into an insanely powerful attack that had its singular drawback removed. It couldn't miss. This led to it winning multiple regional and international championships. Nihiligo was the first good special attacking rock type, which, even to this day, we still have a massive lack of. It was an incredibly fast and powerful sweeper throughout all of Generation 7, one that would only get stronger with each KO it took, leading to it also winning numerous regional and international championships. And Stakataka is our third and final rock type to have won the World Championships, all the way back in 2019, being yet another Ultra Beast that would get increasingly stronger with each KO. It was one of the slowest fully evolved Pokemon in the entire game, giving it access to a Gyro Ball that was capable of hitting almost every other Pokemon at its max power of a whopping 150. That's the same as Hyper Beam. On top of that, it had one of the highest defenses in the entire game, allowing it to survive even doubly super effective earthquakes. And if all that wasn't enough, it had a support move pool that even Psychic types dream of, with access to both Trick Room and Wide Guard. Moving from Sun and Moon and their new Ultra Beast to the release of Sword and Shield and their new Gigantamax Pokemon, rock types continued to succeed. Or at least one did, as Colossal was incredibly strong. You'd have an allied Pokemon trigger both its Weakness Policy held item and Steam Engine ability all at the same time, using a weak Water-type move like Aqua Jet or Surf, allowing it to sweep through entire teams once Gigantamax. Colossal won both of the first two Players' Cups, which were major North American tournaments that took place online once the official circuit was cancelled due to the pandemic. And that brings us to the present day, Scarlet and Violet. Generation 9 actually introduced a bunch of strong rock types. Garganacl won the first ever regional championship in Scarlet and Violet, where its signature move Salt Cure was able to do a ton of passive damage over time, all while it stalled out opponents with its high defenses and the move Recover. Its signature ability also protected it from status conditions and ghost-type attacks, which was incredibly useful. Glimmora was another special attacking rock type that could dish out a ton of damage with Meteor Beam. But it might be even more infamous as a great supportive pick for more defensive teams, thanks to its signature ability that passively set up Toxic Spikes, as well as its signature move Mortal Spin, both of which combined to spread poison across the opponent's entire team. It's only won a single regional championship to date, but it's come darn close so many different times, and like Tyranitar, also looks poised to be in contention for another victory before the end of 2024. A Pokemon that's done more than come darn close, having won multiple championships, even winning something crazy like 5 major events in a row at one point, is Hisuian Arcanine. While it's technically not a Gen 9 Pokemon, as it was released at the tail end of Generation 8, it was never available in-game for players to use until Scarlet and Violet. I did an entire breakdown of Arcanine's complete competitive history, so definitely go watch that after this video for an interesting deep dive on both the Cantonian and Hisuian forms. But Hisuian Arcanine won all those championships thanks in large part to the outrageous amount of damage it could do when holding a Choice Band. It also benefited a lot from terrestrialization as well, significantly boosting the power of extreme speed while also removing its huge weaknesses to ground and water. And of course, it goes without saying on this channel that its Intimidate ability is one of the best in the entire game, passively reducing the amount of damage opponents could do in return to Arcanine and its allies. Last, we have one of Scarlet and Violet's new legendary Pokemon, Ogerpon, who, when holding the Cornerstone Mask, gets a built-in Focus Sash, a strong yet accurate Rock-type attack, which is unheard of, and can support the team with one of the best moves in all of Pokemon, Follow Me. It took until the addition of the restricted legendaries, but Ogerpon Cornerstone was one of the most used Pokemon at the 2024 World Championship, and we're all but assured to see a lot more of it in 2025. So, did you figure out the common link that all these successful Rock-type Pokemon share? Well, rather than simply being defensive brick walls like 99% of Rock types are, these rock types actually do damage. And when you think about the type chart, it makes a ton of sense. Steel types strictly outclass rock types defensively. So what is the one aspect of the type chart where rock types can differentiate themselves? It's on offense. They can hit valuable types like flying and fire for super effective damage without being resisted by 4 of the most common types in the game like steel is. Sure, they can still be useful in supportive or defensive roles like Tyranitar, Stack Attack, and Ogerpon can be used in, but they need to be able to do damage. Defense and support alone aren't enough for the rock types. They're outclassed in those roles. The rock types' properties, in a surprising twist, actually leads them to being played more like offensive glass cannons, similar to ice types because they just have a ton of weaknesses, not enough resistances to make up for it, and are actually capable of hitting many types for super effective damage. So how can Game Freak fix the rock type as a whole? Because clearly in their current state, a good offense just isn't enough. Well, the first thing we need to ask is, how good should rock types actually be? I think it's to be expected that some types like Fairy and Dragon be among the best and have a lot of the game's strongest Pokemon. And lore-wise, it also makes sense for steel types to just outclass rock types. But rock types have their own appealing lore that makes them deserving of being a powerful class of Pokemon. And while sure, it shouldn't be one of the game's top tier types, it should at least be an average type with way more success than it's had so far. I mean, rock types heavily feature a lot of the game's prehistoric and ancient creatures, which if you read some of their Pokedex entries, they should be some of the game's strongest Pokemon, and I think Game Freak could even give us more powerful special attacking rock types. Make some, I don't know, supernatural, super power infused rocks, and maybe they can grab more of that Crystal Mommy demographic out there. And if you're one of the 80% who aren't subscribed, pause the video and go do that right now. It'll increase your chakra and your happiness by 80%. According to TikTok anyway, so, you know, grain of salt. Anyway, I've got 5 simple and realistic ways that Game Freak could move rock from a D tier type all the way up to, say, a B tier one. And a good place to start would be to look at ice types and learn from their resurgence. So, the first thing Game Freak should do is introduce more advantages for rock types whenever their Sandstorm weather effect is active. The special defense boost they already get is nice, but that's all they get. Their immunity to the residual damage every turn is pretty negligible, and steel types who I've kept repeating just outclass the rock type defensively, they're also immune to sandstorm damage. When you look at snow as a comparable weather effect, they don't see a boost to their damage the same way rain and sun do, but they do receive an indirect boost, as they become able to use the strongest ice type move in the game, Blizzard, which hits both opposing Pokemon at a massive base power, while also having a small chance to freeze each target. So, I'd like to see a way for rock types to do more damage inside a sandstorm as well. Whether that's giving rock types a smaller, say 30% boost to their attack and special attack to kind of match the terrains without being too overpowered, or some kind of really powerful spread move that's 100% accurate in sand, similar to Blizzard. Now, that could be a brand new move, or they could even rework an existing move like Rock Slide, giving it, say, a 100% critical hit rate to effectively increase its damage while also bypassing Intimidate, as well as making it 100% accurate, all whenever a sandstorm is active. And then they could reduce the number of non-rock types that get access to the move to keep it exclusively a buff for rock types. Getting some kind of sandstorm exclusive move, similar to how ice types have Aurora Veil where you get this really powerful effect but it can only be used when snow is active, could also be really cool for Game Freak to at least think about. But speaking of moves, proposal number 2 is to fix how atrocious rock type moves are. Most other types have a really good suite of moves. Strong spread moves, powerful yet reliable single target moves, impactful support moves, or even increased priority moves. Rock types don't have any of that. Oh wait, they do have one of the best support moves in the entire game, but these are the rock types that learn it. Yeah, that's why you may not have even known that the incredibly powerful Wide Guard is actually a rock type move. And as for damaging moves, Rock Slide, which is often dubbed the best move in the game, isn't so much known by that moniker because of its immense damage or its reliability. It's just because Pokemon who aren't even rock types can do this.
Oh, the flinch on Gyarados though!
You look at rock type moves that are actually widely distributed to most rock types, and they either have low base power or unreliable accuracy. So needless to say, Game Freak needs to do something about this if they ever want rock types to actually be good. The third thing I'd like to see Game Freak do is to lean more heavily into what we've already seen makes rock types good. No more slow, high defense rock types, and give us more offensive rock types. They've started to get this right in Scarlet and Violet, as Ogerpon and Glamora are great examples of what we need to see more of. And speaking of Glamora, the fourth thing I'd like to see are more unique moves and abilities that fit the rock type theme. Entry hazards like Stealth Rock define single battles, but they rarely see play in double battles. The reason for that is having to spend an entire turn using the move just isn't worth it when you could be using far more immediately impactful attacks. So let's see some more ways to set up Stealth Rock passively. Just like Glamora's signature ability sets up Toxic Spikes. This could even be done in the form of a move's additional effect, like Cleaver's signature Stone Axe. Just make sure it's 100% accurate so that it's worth using, please, Game Freak. Abilities that eliminate rock types' traditional weaknesses would be nice to see too. Looking back on the new strong ice types, Baxcalibur actually benefits when being hit by its traditional weakness, fire. Well, the rock type fossil Armaldo apparently has the power to punch right through steel. Maybe it should have an ability that reflects this, making it not only resist steel type attacks rather than being weak to them, but also making its rock type attacks hit steel types for super effective damage. Or because all of the rock type fossils are honestly complete garbage nowadays, if Paradox Pokemon don't return in Generation 10, why not give the fossils photosynthesis or something similar as a new hidden ability, and keep the booster energy available in-game as an item to power them up? The last way Game Freak could fix the rock type is to adjust the type chart, giving them a new unique property to separate rock types from steel types even more. Both Miraidon and Iron Hands just won the most recent World Championship, absolutely dominating the competition. So where steel types have absolutely no relation to electric types, why not make the rock type hit them for super effective damage? Or the reverse, make rock types resist electric attacks. Or even do both, cause God knows that not only is the electric type incredibly strong, but the rock type needs all the help it can get.